This idea of income, this idea of constrained optimization, because that's what utility maximization is, it's constrained optimization. So we're trying to maximize our utility, but we're do so subject to our budget constraint. And our budget constraint is made up of two factors. It's made up of how much money we have, our income, and the prices of the two goods in question. Here, good Y and good X. And the basic rule is that you cannot consume an amount of X and Y that would cost you more than your income, right? This is the constraint of your income. You cannot consume beyond your income. And so utility maximization becomes a puzzle of maximize my utility subject to my budget constraint. Now the budget constraint itself, here we see illustrated in the graph, creates what we call the choice set. Okay, the gray area on this graph represents the choice set. What this is it represents every affordable bundle. And so the line itself, which is the budget constraint, represents, you can afford anything on the bundle, you can afford anything on the line, and you can afford anything inside of the line. Okay, this represents your choice set. Now, we're going to make a general rule that says that we tend to consume on the budget constraint itself. That is, that we tend to exhaust all of our income. In fact, we'll make this an assumption later on in the context of utility maximization is we will assume that people spend all of their money. So in these very straightforward economic models that we're going to talk about, we're going to assume that there's no savings or anything. That you go into a store, you have a particular budget in mind, you will exhaust your resources in an effort to maximize your utility. This is, of course, a simplistic view of transactions. People have a lot of different reasons for spending money and saving money, but in our simple economic models, at least at this point, we're going to assume that we always consume on the budget constraint itself. And then a non-trivially important point is that the slope of the budget constraint, in fact, is just a ratio of the prices of the goods. And also that the slope of the budget constraint represents the opportunity cost of switching consumption between the two goods. So if I am consuming a particular amount of good X and I want to consume less X and more Y, the prices of X and Y will dictate my ability to do so. Right? They will dictate the opportunity cost of changing my consumption from X to Y. That opportunity cost is simply the ratio of the prices between the two goods. And then lastly, in the context of budgets, they can change. They can change for two reasons. What we call price effects. So we see here on the left, this is a circumstance where the price of good X has increased. This causes what we call a pivot of our budget constraint to the left. And what you should now see is that because I consume X and Y, and X has become more expensive, I can no longer consume the same bundles that I could before, which makes a lot of sense. So if this is my budget constraint before, price of X went up, this is my budget constraint afterwards. You can see that my choice set is now smaller. Again, this should make a lot of sense. And my ability to consume has now been restricted. So this is what happens. If you consume goods and the price of one of the goods that you consume rises, this now constricts your ability to consume all the other goods that you consume, assuming you still consume that good. Now, you could substitute away. You could no longer consume the good whose price increased, which is certainly sometimes what occurs, in order to sort of retain your choice set from before, but sometimes it's unavoidable. Say if the price increase is your electricity rates, or the price increase is on a necessary good like milk, where you have to buy milk basically every week. So if the price of milk rises, not only does this reduce your ability to buy milk, it also will reduce your ability to buy other goods, given that you're almost certainly going to buy milk each week still, even though the price has increased. And then in the right here, we can see what happens when your income rises. So when your income rises, this causes what we call a shift of your budget constraint. So a pivot is caused by price changes, and a shift is caused by income changes. And we can see naturally that as you make more income, your choice set grows. You're now able to consume more goods than you were able to before. And so also this means that you're likely to be able to consume on a higher indifference curve, right? Whereas we can see here in the left panel, if a price of good X were to go up, I probably have to consume on a lower indifference curve now. So when prices go up, my utility tends to fall. When my income rises, my utility tends to increase. Those are probably not surprising statements, but I think it's informative to see these graphically, right? One of the things that I always loved about economics was that, okay, yeah, certainly sometimes the analysis seems a bit straightforward, right? The prices of the goods you consume go up, your happiness may be lower, or if your income goes up, your happiness may be more. But I think it's very important and instructive for us to be able to show this in a very simplistic way as we have in these two graphs and figures. And I say simplistic not because I think that these are necessarily easy to understand when you first see them, but once you get the hang of budget constraints and what they represent, I think the story is fairly straightforward. Okay, that's going to wrap up video 2. I look forward to seeing you next.